For me, the Harry Potter books will always be superior to the Harry Potter films. But that being said, the 8 Harry Potter films are some of my favorite movies of all time. Sure, I've bashed them a few times in previous videos, but as I always said, they aren't bad movies. They're actually phenomenal and are up there as the best book to movie adaptations in recent years. Today, I'm gonna do something that I don't often do. I'm gonna point out 10 things that the Harry Potter movies did better than the books. These could just be little details or entire plot lines that they changed that I actually prefer. Before we start, I'm trying to grow my footprint on other social medias besides just YouTube. I do a lot of fun stuff on TikTok that I think most of you would enjoy if you like what I do on this channel. I also have some fun on Instagram showing my personal life, my cute dog Loki, and I even show some behind the scenes Movie Flame stuff. And on Twitter, you'll see Movie Flame updates, as well as some fun posts about your favorite fandoms, and just my opinions on certain topics that might interest some of you. All of these and more are linked below. If you want, give me a follow. If not, that's totally fine. Now, let's get the video started. The Dark Mark at the Battle of the Astronomy Tower. Unfortunately, the actual battle was cut at the end of the Half-Blood Prince, but to me, there was one change that actually made up for this, and that is when and why the Dark Mark was cast in the sky. In the book, Harry and Dumbledore returned to Hogsmeade after the cave sequence, and when they got back, Dumbledore saw the Dark Mark cast over the school. For those that don't know, the Dark Mark was the sign that Death Eaters put over a house, or in this case a castle, after they killed someone in that place. So Dumbledore seeing this, he immediately thought that somebody had been killed in the castle. This made him rush back to the school, and ultimately he found out it was a trap, as no one had been killed. They just used the Dark Mark to lure him back. In the book, the mark did not signify any loss or deeper meaning. In the movie, however, they don't cast the Dark Mark in the sky until Dumbledore was killed. So in the movie, the Dark Mark was cast in the name of Dumbledore's death, which I found to be so much more powerful. Then in the scene that follows, we see everybody raise their wands in honor of Dumbledore, and as they do this, the Dark Mark disappears. This incredible shot of the mark disappearing signifies that though the immediate danger is gone, the darkness that the mark represented will have major consequences. It will loom over them for a long time. Dumbledore is gone, and from here on out, nothing will be the same. By making the mark represent a death, and moreover, the death of their leader, it makes it all the more ominous and threatening. Luna being friends with Helena Ravenclaw. I've said many times that I love what the films did with Luna. Luna was perfectly cast. Ivana Lynch is Luna Lovegood. Luna's addition here was fantastic because she was paired with someone very similar to her. Both Helena Ravenclaw and Luna are outsiders that many see as weird. Both of them even have nicknames that they dislike, Luna being called Loony Lovegood and Helena being called the Grey Lady.
You're the Grey Lady, the ghost of Ravenclaw Tower.
I do not answer to that name.
In the books, their relationship was non-existent, but the filmmakers saw something that Rowling didn't even see, and they paired these two together, implying that they had been friends for many years. Doing this, the film sort of replaced Luna with nearly headless Nick, because Nick was the one to point him in the right direction to find the Grey Lady. And I know a lot of people were mad that they took this moment away from Harry, because he was the one that came up with the idea to talk to Helena, but I would trade Luna and her very fascinating friendship with the Grey Lady to Harry having one idea taken away from him any day. Luna was meant for this scene, and I think the movies added a great dynamic to the story with a student and a ghost becoming good friends. Ron and the radio. The radio was something that wasn't really a thing in the books. Ron had brought a radio back with him after he rejoined Harry and Hermione, but it was merely to listen to Potter Watch. Ron was not obsessed with it the way he was in the film, and honestly, one of the best parts of Deathly Hallows Part 1 for me was the radio sequence. In the film, the radio represents Ron's hope and his dread. He listens to it hoping to hear good news, but he also listens to it in case there is bad news. Ron has almost an addiction to the thing. He's so desperate to hear something, and whether it's good or bad, he didn't care. The radio manifested into this thing that represented his internal conflict, his frustration, his fear, his anxiety, and eventually his anger.
Do you know why I listen to that radio every night, dear? To make sure I don't hear Ginny's name, or Fred, or George, or Mum. What, you think I'm not listening to?
The radio being dropped into the plot was not only to develop Ron's character though, it also became a great tool for the screenwriters to pass on information.
Severus Snape, the newly appointed headmaster of Hogwarts, has defeated.
and in doing so, they cut out entire scenes from the book, like the trio talking to Phineas Nigelis' portrait, or overhearing Griphook, Ted Tonks, Dean Thomas, and a few others. Scenes that gave us loads of information in the book, but that would have eaten up a lot of time in the movie. The radio was a brilliant way to give us that information in a very simple way. To have this one tiny thing do so much, developing a character and being an outlet for important information, that's not easy to write, and the screenwriters did it brilliantly. Griphook dying and the sword disappearing. In the book, the last we see of Griphook is him running away from the trio after he betrayed them. In the movie, however, we get closure on a character that was minor, but that had been there since the first book, and I think that's huge. It's a small detail, but seeing that Griphook was among the goblins killed by Voldemort added so much. We see that karma caught up with him, and on top of that, this scene reminds us that the sword of Gryffindor is still out there, and clearly, Griphook was not worthy enough to possess this weapon. It sets up this idea of the sword leaving Griphook so it can go to somebody who is truly worthy. It's great foreshadowing that the book was just not able to convey, and to have a scene that lasts 8 seconds give us closure on a character and foreshadow what's to come later on, that's pretty impressive. Neville and Luna. Neville is one of my favorite characters in the series, and as I said earlier, the films did an incredible job with Luna's character, and the addition of Neville and Luna's relationship in the final movie was just the icing on the cake for both characters. It was the perfect ending for both of them. Even though Rowling revealed that Luna would end up with Newt Scamander's grandson Ralph Scamander, and Neville would end up with fellow student Hannah Abbott, I think these two characters were meant for each other. They have very similar character arcs when it comes to Dumbledore's army. They both found a place where they were accepted, and even after the DA ended, they were the only two that held on to their DA coins. It also helps that Evanna Lynch and Matthew Lewis have such amazing on-screen chemistry, and they have since the very beginning. One of my favorite scenes in the final film is Neville being on a high of adrenaline, and using that adrenaline to work up the courage to tell Luna how he felt.
I feel like I can spit fire. You haven't seen Luna, have you? Luna? I'm my father. I think it's about time I told her since we'll probably both be dead by dawn.
And seeing them sit together after the battle was over was just so satisfying. Sirius's final words. Sirius is a very sad character when you break his arc down, and one of the most tragic things in his life was losing his best friend James. He and James were inseparable, and Sirius was even James's best man at his wedding. One of the reasons why Sirius gravitates to Harry so much is because Harry reminds him of James.
But you look so like your father.
Harry obviously looks exactly like his father, and all of this makes Sirius treat Harry like James.
He's not James, Sirius.
This is why I love his final line in the movie so much. In the book, his final lines was merely him egging Bellatrix on, but in the film, Sirius says,
Nice one, James.
and he says this without even noticing it, because to him, Harry has sort of become this embodiment of his long-lost friend. It shows how much he misses James, and James ends up being the last person Sirius really thinks about before he dies, and eventually joins James in the afterlife. This line is made even better by the fact that they address Sirius's grief about losing his best friend several times in the movie before this.
It's been 14 years. And still a day doesn't go by. I don't miss your dad.
I see him so much in you, Harry. You are so very much alike.
The idea for his final words in this film were brilliant. Their foreshadowing to make this line pay off was so well done, and the execution of the acting was so well done by not only Gary Oldman, but by Daniel Radcliffe's reaction to him hearing this. Snape's final words. Snape is another character whose final words I actually preferred in the movie rather than the book. In the book, his final words were, "Look at me," but the film added one final line saying,
"You have your mother's eyes."
Something that is just so powerful because he finally sees Harry in a different light. Instead of seeing James in him as he had all these years, he finally sees the bit of Lily inside of him. This one added line adds so much complexity and heartbreak to Snape's character, because when he finally sees the good in Harry and the part of Lily in him, it's too late. Also, just the fact that they highlighted Snape looking into Harry's eyes, which was said in the book as the green eyes found the black. By highlighting this and bringing this moment into actual dialogue, it makes the gravity of this moment so much more real. Snape is essentially looking into the eyes of the woman he loved, and that's the last thing he sees. Snapping the Elder Wand. This is something I've talked about a few times, and it's pretty controversial for a lot of Harry Potter fans. In both the book and the film, Harry was the master of the Elder Wand, the most powerful wand in the world. To get rid of it in the book, he placed it in Dumbledore's tomb. But there are just so many plot holes with this. First of all, the wand had been stolen from this very spot before, so what makes Harry think it wouldn't happen again? Also, Harry eventually goes on to be an Auror, a position where he would fight dark wizards pretty often. So if just one of those dark wizards disarms Harry, they are then the true masters of the most powerful wand in the world. We saw how easy it was for Draco to become the master, merely disarming Dumbledore in the most simple way. And then later, Harry merely wrestled the wand out of Draco's hands, and he was the true master. It's just so easy to become the master of the wand, and somebody is bound to disarm Harry at some point with the job he has. And if we take a look at the Cursed Child, which in my opinion is complete garbage, but Rowling said it's canon, so in the play we see Delphi, Voldemort's daughter, disarm Harry. So according to the rules of Harry Potter established by JK, Voldemort's daughter is now the owner of the most powerful wand in the world. You see, there are just so many plot holes, and it makes so much more sense to simply snap the wand and be done with it forever. Because that's what Harry wanted. He wanted to die being the master of the wand so no one else could use it. So why try to hide it in a place where it had already been stolen when you could just snap it and be done with it? The Battle of the Department of Mysteries. As I've said in previous videos, the Order of the Phoenix film is my favorite out of the 8 movies, and the Order of the Phoenix book is my least favorite out of the 7 novels. And a large reason why was how they handled the Battle of the Department of Mysteries. This, in my opinion, is the worst ending to any of the books. It's the worst final battle. But the movie was able to completely flip my view on the scene, and with the films, it turned out to be one of my favorite final battles. In the book, they separate the kids and have them go off on their own, and this makes the sequence slow down quite a bit. I just found it very jumbled and sort of boring going from room to room in the Department of Mysteries. Sure, it was cool to see these different branches of magic, but it was not the time to do it. It took away from the suspense. There was so much build up to this fight, and when we finally got to the Department of Mysteries, I was like, okay, here we go. But then it just dragged on even more. They get to the circular room full of doors, and they just randomly guess which door to go through. And to me, guessing just sort of makes these obstacles pointless, especially when compared to the obstacles in the first book, a sequence that gave each character a moment to shine, and it was very thrilling. But here it just felt pointless. We go from the circular room, then to the brain room, back to the circular room, then to the death chamber, back to the circular room, then to the time room, and then to the Hall of Prophecies. It's just so much that delays the action the audience has been waiting for. Meanwhile, in the movie, the sequence isn't too long, it's exciting, it's mysterious, and it's heartbreaking. The filmmakers also added some amazing moments for the characters that were not in the book, most notably Neville standing up to Bellatrix, the person who tortured his parents into madness.
Neville Longbottom, is it? How's Mum and Dad?
Better now they're about to be avenged.
This is one of my favorite Neville lines, and it was never in the book. It was made just for the movie. Also, one of the best things the film did with the sequence was keeping the kids together, showing unity, and they fought side by side. But in the book, they were all split up. By keeping them together, it opens the door to how important Harry's friends are. They're there for him, and this makes the next scene pay off even more. Harry first gives up the prophecy to save his friends, and then later, his friends repay the favor coming in to save Harry. They remind him of the love he has inside of him, the thing that makes him different from Voldemort. Leading up to this in the film, Harry had so much turmoil about how he was bad like Voldemort, and this scene reinforces that in the end, Harry's greatest strength is love, and he's nothing like Voldemort. But in the book, Harry's friends never return to his side, making what I think to be the best part of the sequence non-existent.
You're the weak one, and you'll never know love or friendship. And I feel sorry for you.
This also turns into one of the most powerful scenes in the entire series, bringing together all of these moments from previous films where Harry was side by side with his friends. The film masterfully rewrote the sequence, and in my opinion, made it so much better. And finally, Snape visiting Godric's Hollow. This was one of the best decisions they made throughout all 8 movies. During The Prince's Tale, they brilliantly added the sequence of Snape going to Godric's Hollow after Voldemort killed Lily and James. In the book, this never happened. This sequence of Snape going to Godric's Hollow actually replaced a few scenes from the book and combined them. I'm referring to Snape reading the letter from Lily and Snape first learning of Lily's death. In the novel, Snape cried his eyes out as he read a letter written by Lily while in Grimmauld Place, and in the scene where he discovered Lily's death, he fell to the floor and was described as a man who had lived 100 years of misery. This took place in Dumbledore's office though, not in Godric's Hollow. By changing the location of the scene, it made Snape falling to the floor even more tear-jerking, because he was not just thinking about Lily being dead, he saw her dead body right in front of him. And then, replacing the letter scene, the scene that was probably the most powerful part of The Prince's Tale in the book, with Snape actually holding Lily's body, it made the scene come into a whole new level of sadness. This scene was also flawlessly done because they were able to combine Snape walking through the house to what he and Dumbledore were talking about in the major chunk of the Prince's Tale sequence. When Snape mentioned Harry's father, they show Snape seeing James's dead body. When they mention Harry being a Horcrux, they show Harry in his crib now bearing the scar. And when Snape admits his love for Lily, it shows him holding her dead body. This shows flawless writing, flawless editing, flawless acting, and flawless execution on every level. This is without a doubt my favorite scene in the 8 films, and it just so happens that it was not in the book. It was masterfully planned and thought out by the filmmakers. This is by far the best change that they made when adapting the books. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm just here to give a huge shout out to all my patrons listed to the left. If you want to be featured on the next video, plus get a bunch of other things like previews and behind the scenes, become a patron today. Also, you can follow me on social media to see more of my personal life, like my cute dog Loki. I also do some fun stuff on TikTok and Twitter that I think you guys would really enjoy if you enjoy what I do here on this channel. As always, if you liked the video, hit that like button and subscribe, and look out for more great Movie Flame videos on the way.